Result of some of Musk's tweets, the threat to you has gone up and things are in place to protect your safety.
Yes.
How does that make you feel?
Resigned to the lot in life that you get as a woman who fights violence against women and girls. I've learnt that it's ups and downs in my life, but what it makes me know is that I have to just keep on going.
Is it worth it?
It's worth it to me only if we make an actual change. That's what's worth it to me. And if I had to go through all of this and I hadn't changed the way local areas deal with grooming gangs in 2 years' time, it wouldn't have been worth it. But I'm fairly certain.
Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips has told BBC's Newsnight that disinformation spread by Elon Musk was endangering her, but that it was nothing compared to the experiences of victims of abuse. The tech billionaire and advisor to U.S. President-elect Donald Trump labeled Phillips a rogue genocide apologist and said she should be jailed. Asked if the threat to her own safety had gone up since his social media posts and whether protections were in place, Phillips replied yes. She said the experience had been very tiring, but that she was resigned to the lot in life that you get as a woman who fights violence against women and girls. She added, "I'm no stranger to people who don't know what they're talking about trying to silence women like me." The row between Mr. Musk and the UK government concerns cases of groups of men, mainly of Pakistani descent, being convicted for sexually abusing and raping predominantly white girls around the UK. Musk's intervention came in response to Phillips rejecting a request for the government to lead a public inquiry to child sexual exploitation in Oldham, which sparked calls from the Conservatives and Reform UK for a national inquiry into grooming gangs. Phillips' decision was taken in October but first reported by GB News at the start of the year, and then picked up by Mr. Musk on his social media platform X. Phillips defended the government's decision not to hold a national inquiry, arguing that local inquiries, such as one held in Telford, were more effective at leading to change. "What I saw happen in Telford is the exact opposite of what I have seen happen because of the national expert inquiry for the last 2 years since it came out. I saw change happen," she said. She said she would be getting council leaders together to learn the lessons from Telford. When people say it's the council marking their own homework, it isn't. It is an independent inquiry led locally, and it's the only model I've seen work, and I've worked in this field for 15 years. The independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, which lasted 7 years and reported in 2022, made 20 recommendations. However, none has yet been implemented. Speaking to the Today program earlier, Professor Alexis J., who led the inquiry, said, "We've had enough of inquiries, consultations, and discussions. We have set out what action is required and people should just get on with it locally and nationally." However, Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick argued that a new national inquiry was needed, saying, "We now know so much more." He added, "The J Review looked at 6 towns. We now suspect that at least 50 towns have had grooming gangs of this kind. We can try to prevent other vulnerable young girls from being in this position again. And the frankly cowardly officials and councillors who have covered this up can also be brought to justice."
The Conservatives have said they will try to add an amendment to the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Bill calling for ministers to establish a national statutory inquiry into historical child sexual exploitation focused on grooming gangs. The Labor government has a big majority in the House of Commons, and therefore the amendment, which if approved would kill the bill, is unlikely to pass. Prime Minister Keir Starmer said MPs should not be voting down a bill which includes measures for safeguarding children. Speaking to the Mirror, Sir Keir said, "It's shocking they are even thinking about this as a tactic. It's the elevation of the desire for retweets over any real interest in the safeguarding of children." But Shadow Education Minister Neil O'Brien claimed the government was blocking a full national inquiry, adding, "Labor MPs now have a first chance to vote to give victims answers and justice, and pass an amendment that will make clear that the will of Parliament is for a national inquiry." Asked about her reaction to Mr. Musk's comments about her personally, Phillips said his remarks were ridiculous. She said the criticism she was currently facing would be worth it, only if we make an actual change. "And if I have to go through all of this and I haven't changed the way local areas deal with grooming gangs in 2 years' time, it wouldn't have been worth it," she added. She said suggestions Labor politicians worried inquiries would be unpopular with their own voters was an absolute load of rubbish. Phillips, who ran a domestic abuse refuge before becoming a Labour MP, also strongly defended her own record on tackling violence against women. "I've worked in this field for years. I have met with, I have supported, for a number of years, girls who are still being groomed. I've travelled across the country in the middle of the night, something that I very much doubt that Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch or Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp have done to get a young woman, literally while she was bleeding from a battering, to take her to a place of safety." Speaking at an event in Las Vegas on Tuesday, ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino defended Mr. Musk's comments, saying, "If not for X, where would the conversation be to save thousands of girls, to bring people to justice who must? Those grooming trials would have stayed silent, and now we're looking at an inquiry. So I look at the bravery and the vision, courage to do that." On Monday, Home Secretary Yvette Cooper set out actions she was taking to implement the recommendations of the J Review, including criminal sanctions for those who failed to report child sexual abuse. Phillips dismissed suggestions the government had been prompted into action by Mr. Musk's interventions. "To be perfectly honest, the things that Yvette Cooper was announcing yesterday are all things that we were working incredibly hard on ensuring," she said.
So all of these things are things that would be happening. All that this current furor has done is made it so that everybody's talking about it. In a separate interview with Sky News, Phillips suggested Mr. Musk should crack on with getting to Mars. "Elon Musk is going to be Elon Musk. I've got bigger and more important things to be thinking about," she said. In early January 2025, a public dispute emerged between UK Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips and tech entrepreneur Elon Musk, centering on the handling of child sexual exploitation cases in the UK. The controversy began when Phillips declined Oldham Council's request for a government-led public inquiry into historical grooming gang abuses in Greater Manchester, opting instead for a locally conducted review. Elon Musk responded by criticizing Phillips on social media, labeling her a rope genocide apologist and suggesting she should be imprisoned for her decision. Musk's comments extended to Prime Minister Keir Starmer, accusing him of failing to prosecute grooming gangs during his tenure as Director of Public Prosecutions from 2008 to 2013. Phillips countered by stating that Musk knows absolutely nothing about the subject and expressed concern that his remarks were endangering her safety. She emphasized her commitment to supporting victims and criticized the politicization of child exploitation issues. Following Musk's statements, Phillips reported an increase in threats against her, leading to enhanced security measures. The situation drew reactions from various political figures. Prime Minister Starmer defended Phillips, highlighting her dedication to advocating for abuse victims, and condemned the spread of misinformation on social media. Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenner acknowledged past governmental shortcomings in addressing grooming gangs and expressed support for further investigations, while cautioning against diluting language for fear of being labeled racist. Additionally, survivors of gender-based violence, including those from the Telford abuse scandal, criticized Musk's remarks and expressed support for Phillips, noting her lifelong dedication to fighting for women and girls. This incident is part of a broader pattern of Musk's involvement in European political matters, where he has been accused of attempting to influence overseas politics and supporting far-right figures. European leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, have expressed concerns over Musk's interventions in their country's internal affairs. If you guys have enjoyed this video, please do not forget to subscribe and leave a like. Much appreciated.